Everyone, we're just going to get started in just a moment. Good. Okay, top of the hour. Welcome everybody. Nice to see a large audience of you joining us here on Zoom Live today. And see if we can get a few of you on YouTube this morning as well. We're also live there. Of course, you can watch any of these webinars after the fact on the CCTV channel. That's at Conservatory Canada TV on YouTube. So happy Friday, everybody. Go ahead and throw in the chat box where you're from and where you're calling in from today. I know I'm in Thunder Bay, as most of you know, and today it's warm for days here and really humid, much more humid than normal. So I've got all my fans off because my microphone's going to go into overtime today as I try and capture some live piano music. I'm sure a lot of you watched last week's After the Fact on replay. And what we're doing is we're going through the Mosaics series here that we've just launched. We have Prep, Grade 1 and Grade 2 books out now. And we're working through Grade 1 last week and this week. Last week I played through all of Group 1 pieces, that's Baroque and Classical Repertoire. And today I'm going to play through the Group 2 music, which is a little bit of romantic stuff, but mostly modern genres. And then next week, a lot of you have already registered, I see. We're going to dive into Mosaics 2 next week, looking at Baroque and Classical Repertoire from there. And I just welcome our publisher, Andrew Harbridge, is here with me today again. He's going to help me out a little bit in the background, help me fill in some blanks. Everyone's chiming in from where they're from today. Andrew's in Peterborough, Ontario.
I'm very pleased to see Helena here. Helena was my advanced theory teacher.
Ah, excellent.
She really knows her stuff.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to share my screen here and we're going to dive right in. I would encourage you to check out last week's webinar. I went into a lot of detail about some things with regard to articulation in Baroque music, how we can approach that with students, what we think of when we're keyboard players, and how we do that kind of thing. I'll come back to all of those topics from time to time throughout the series as we go. But today, a lot of you I know are interested in contemporary repertoire. Some of you are using the contemporary Eames piano syllabus. And a lot of the times we wonder, what are examiners listening for when it comes to contemporary repertoire? It's a different bag a little bit. Some of the accents are in different places. How do we want to hear the phrasing? All of these things I'm going to remind you of a little bit today. Andrew's going to help me as well. And we're going to give you an idea of how to approach some of the contemporary music as we go along. So I'm just going to share my screen. And let's do that. And let's get right into the music here. And if anyone has any questions here in Zoom, go ahead and throw them in the chat box. We'll stop and answer those as we go. And so Group 2 in the publication starts with The Moon's Orbit. This is a piece by Nancy Telfer that was published a few years ago, or a couple of years ago. I think 2022, Andrew said to us recently.
Yes.
And I'm going to play through all of the music. I don't know how many pieces there are. There are at least a dozen here in the contemporary section, if not more. And I'm just going to play through and I'll talk about certain ones more than others. This one I like because it really gets students to use that pedal and really manage the resonance in a fine way. And there's a lot of dynamic changes. And there's a general arc that I like in this one that starts from quiet, gradually builds up a little bit louder towards the middle. You can get quite resonant with it without banging too hard. And then it comes down and calms down at the end. So you can let students listen back to it and have them describe this long arc. And the trick for me in this one is, even though the pedal's down, we want to play louder. We don't want the hammer to be striking the key too loudly. And so there's a technique to that uses a long arm. And lately I've been imagining like my fingers are connected way back into my elbow so that I'm using the whole lever so that I can get that hammer to the string with weight, but not accelerating too much. A little different than some other forte approaches we might do. So I'll dive right in here. Andrew's going to help me. Sometimes my microphone, I notice, has been acting up already today as we were testing. Hopefully that's worked out, and if not, I apologize. But I need to get original sound on. There we go.
I love that one. Gorgeous.
Yeah, nice. And so this one, I found it tricky. I was reminded of, the quieter we are, the more dirty the pedal can kind of be. I'm not clearing it all the way to the top in the piano and the pianissimo sections, just to add a bit more resonance and fog to the overall color. And then in the middle and the louder sections, I have to be a lot cleaner to clear the old harmonies. But it's something you can explore with students in terms of pedal. And perhaps a lot of this is a bit too advanced for grade one for most of us. I know in my studio, some students I wouldn't be able to talk like this. But I do try and overload them. And as I mentioned last week, I'm the kind of teacher who, I give them a lot of repertoire before we even get to grade one. So by the time they get to grade one, they could read this piece very quickly within a few days, probably. And so we do have time to go through and talk on that level. We talked about the importance of that last week too. If anyone's not sure, I'll come back to that idea from time to time, how to pace students so that when they get to grade one and they want to do grade one exam, they can explore some of these advanced concepts. I think that's very important, and it keeps them playing longer into the upper levels. So that's the Moon's Orbit. I also played that one a couple of weeks ago when we were just quickly overviewing the first few books. Here's a neat piece, Camel at the Zoo by Julianne Workington. This one's got a lot of character. We can explore the idea of legato versus staccato, and we even see some staccato in the right hand with a slur. We can teach students how to approach that. We like to call it portamento, slur with staccato. You'll see it in the right hand in bar 2. And portamento just simply means to carry. And I like to use the illusion that I borrowed from an old teacher, Heather Morrison, who talked about skipping a stone on the water. And you have this kinetic energy between those strikes as the stone strikes the water, but the energy is carried from one note to the next. It's a really good sort of analogy, I think, when we're trying to describe portamento to students and what the kind of sound we want to get. So here's Camel at the Zoo.
I think this will be quite popular.
So again, it's just a nice simple staccato study. And you see the staccatos in my right hand when the quarter notes especially, they're not too short. They still have some energy in between them. And it just sounds like a really neat, dry kind of feeling in this piece. The next one, Edwige Chrétien, women composer. This one's edited by Sandra Mogensen. A lot of the pieces in the early parts, grade 1, 2, and 3, are going to be from editions that were edited by her, published by Wanless Music. And this is The Baby Falls Asleep, a nice legato piece, but something we haven't really seen before in the conservatory repertoire, and so we're happy to introduce this one. Tricky to
Yep.
control at times, but it's just nice to have that subtle inflection where we're getting to the downbeat with enough integrity to make an accent there in the middle of the phrase. And so that's The Baby Falls Asleep. And then the next one, also edited by Sandra Mogensen. This is from Marguerite Baluté, a woman composer. And again, this one we probably haven't seen published, or it'd be rarely published, I think, back in her time. And this is in English, Taking My Doll for a Walk. I gotta turn the page. tricky thing in this one is the left hand has to project in the second half, yet you have these accents in the right hand. The right hand decays quickly enough that we can still strike it fairly heavily, but the left hand has to be prominent. A lot of students are weak with that left hand and they don't want to project it. And so this is something you can use to work on that kind of aspect in projecting a left hand melody. Again, if anyone has any questions, just throw them in the chat box at any time and we'll stop and answer those. And then Dance of the Gremlins. Andrew, do you know who Thelma Gillis is?
Yes, she's a composer from out west,
Okay.
and I believe she's up there in years.
1927 she was born, so that's, yeah,
Yeah.
97 years old. So the nice thing about these books too, we didn't mention this last week, I don't think, we have these biographies in the back of the book. And so you can see here, like the old books, we can refer to all of these. And Thelma's in here from Saskatchewan. She started learning music at a young age due to the encouragement of her parents, and she went on to teach numerous students over 70 years. And she's been recognized for her generous spirit, giving free piano lessons to students with fewer resources. So yeah, this is nice to include this piece. A lot of character. Dance of the Gremlins, you can see at the beginning the octave lower sign. We don't normally see this in the treble clef, but it was the best way to write this. So both hands are playing an octave lower in the first line, and then at the very end, the right hand's playing an octave higher. So the students get to learn a lot of navigation here, bringing out a lot of character. Again, staccato notes, this time with forte. And again, these staccato notes maybe not as crisp as you would see in other pieces, because we still want some character there and a little bit of substance to the sound. So I'll play through this, and if anyone has any questions, we'll try and answer them.
That's fun. It reminds me of Mouse in the Coal Bin a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
that,
also Prowling Pussycat from our old series,
yeah.
but much easier. I'm reminded here in this one too, because we've got two hands down low like that, acoustically it's beneficial to highlight the right hand if you want a brighter sound. And if you want a darker sound, you can get students to play this opening with the left hand much louder. Listen to the difference here. I'll play the first one like I did. I'm going to highlight the right hand to bring out the top octave. Makes it sound kind of bright. And now I'm going to highlight the left hand to give a more darker presentation. It's not something we typically do to want to add the left hand louder like that, because acoustically it just doesn't, it's not as colorful. But in this piece, it might be a choice a student could make. I would give them the choice, but the main thing is just to get them to practice and listen on that level and be able to emphasize the left hand where required. I think this is a really good piece for that. And again, there's always phrasing in this music, right? There's always crescendo, diminuendo, even if it isn't marked. We want to show off, like we talked about last week in the classical music, the length of the phrase. This one, there's a 2 plus 2 plus 4 here right off the bat. First two bars are a phrase, the third and fourth bar are a phrase, and then we get a long 4-bar phrase after that, starting at measure 9. Okay, so let's go to the next piece. We do have a question here in the chat box. Anita says she's very impressed that all the music you've played so far has been written by women. Yeah, isn't that something? That's a good point. I didn't realize that all of these pieces so far in group 2. And another one here, Deborah Wanless. Of course, we've had her on the webinar up until about last year. We might try and pull her out of retirement here at some point. But this is a piece, Andrew, do you know where this was first published, this piece?
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't remember.
This one's very legato, lots of opportunity for phrasing here. And because the right hand has these interesting designs, these wavy designs, it's hard to get a smooth long phrase that may just go straight like we would normally see when we want a long phrase. I'll do my best here, and you can listen to the contour that I'm trying to create, and I'll try and follow the dynamics that are printed there as well. So compositionally, she's using a ground bass here as the sort of foundation, so it's a good chance to talk to students about that. And you can hear the legato I'm trying to overlap with my right hand. Pretty much everything today, I'm always using little bits of pedal. We probably don't expect that, and that's pretty hard to coach for grade one. I'm just adding it because I want it to sound as good as possible, and that's just the way I do things. But we wouldn't expect maybe a grade one student to have that sort of advanced level of listening. But you could certainly add it in here and there. This one, the pedal markings are there. It's not exactly how I'm pedaling ever because every environment's a little different. I'm also considering the fact that I've got a microphone here that I have to play into. That changes my approach as well. So that's Daydreaming, almost lullaby-like. And then something totally different, a rock tune, driving rock rhythm from Christopher Norton. We tried to include one of his pieces here in the books as we go along. And this is all from the Connection series when you see his music throughout the Mosaic series. The one thing I try to highlight here, and I work with students a lot, is this left hand accenting beats 2 and 4. Pretty much all pop and rock styles, I wouldn't say all, but most, you're going to want to accent 2 and 4 in these driving pieces. It's the way that the dialect works. It's opposite to classical music. I'll give it to you here, and even my right hand's going to accent 2 and 4, and you can sort of hear this authentic backbeat feel that develops in it. You can hear there, I'm trying to drive beats 2 and 4 a little bit louder. When we first launched Contemporary Idioms back in 2007, 2008, we had a crew of examiners back then. I don't believe any of them is with us still, but they would go around, they were doing these tours across Canada promoting the contemporary music and talking about the styles. And this was always the first thing they would mention in one of their workshops, the importance of beats 2 and 4. And that's something that our examiners are listening for and commenting on in these sort of more driving contemporary styles. Here's a neat one, Mel Bonis, edited by Sandra Mogensen again, called The Ceremony. It's very bright and fanfare-like, and you'll notice these Bartok-like accents on every note in the melody. And so that's really interesting, and I only noticed the other day that it said non-legato, so I've had to change my approach to this piece in the last few days to better reflect that, and I think it makes more sense that way. But it's kind of heavy, it's very bright, and to be honest, I've got the pedal lingering in the background just a little bit from time to time here to get a little bit more color. Wouldn't expect that from the students, but just know that that's sort of how I employ this, especially at the very end when I'm trying to get extra resonance there. And the trick here, I think, is even though I'm thinking very, very aggressive in my right hand, where everything sounds like a downbeat, more or less, still want to have some kind of line and fluency there. So you can see my tempo is probably a little quicker than most might want to play that. So tricky piece that way, but it gets that arm moving, really, with students.
This reminds me of bells for some reason, and I did make a backing track for this one with bells. You can shut it on or off if you like it or not, and yeah.
The backing track will be available in the SuperScore app. Yeah. Excellent.
Driving Range has a backing track.
I'm all mixed up here. Here we go. Jazz Cat Blues is the next one. So this is Andrew composing. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about this piece, Andrew?
Well, it's a piece that is the epitome of the 12-bar blues. It's got 12 bars. It has blue notes and blue scales. So I can't think of how to make it any more bluesy than that.
And so it's based on C, but it says A minor pentatonic scale piece.
That's right. So the difference between the blues scale and a minor pentatonic is the flat fifth that's missing.
Right.
And
why would we say, this is going to confuse a lot of people, why would we say it's A minor pentatonic and not C major pentatonic?
it's based on the minor scale. I have to think through my theory real fast here.
Yeah, I was looking, I mean, it looks like a C blues piece, but you're right, it doesn't have the F sharp in it. And so this is a good chance for us to reinforce for everyone where that blues scale comes from. If we take C major scale and we change that to C pentatonic, and then move that down a third so that we get A minor pentatonic. I'm still playing in the same key, C, D, E, G, A. And then when we add flat 5, that's how we get A blues. But here all Andrew's done, instead of, the best way to describe this is to use A minor pentatonic, but he does include the E flat there. And sometimes the B flat. So it's interesting here. You've got kind of a hybrid between A minor pentatonic and C blues without that flat 5. So I can see why you did that, but yeah, it's hard to know exactly. I just wanted to explain that to people, how that might work. And
bar 8, yeah. Bar 8 and 9 have the complete pentatonic.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would almost call that C minor pentatonic.
Sorry, it's not minor. It's A minor. It's not A minor, it's A minor. I never thought there'd be that confusion. So,
okay, that's cool. Okay, so it's a minor pentatonic scale.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense now. What I just went through, though, is really important for contemporary idiom students. When they have to do the applied skills portion of the exam, they're often told to demonstrate and show off this link between the major pentatonic, how that relates to the minor pentatonic, and how adding the flat 5 builds the blues scale out of that. I find this piece difficult to play in that I'm trying to accent 2 and 4 a little bit for an authentic feel, but it's difficult to do, and so I'm going to try my best here. And the other thing I'm thinking of, and I try to coach students around we're listening for, is the idea of the 12-bar blues like Andrew mentioned. When you get to the 4 chord, we want it to naturally sound a bit louder. And when we get to the 5 chord, finally, always at bar 9 in a 12-bar blues, you can see the crescendo to forte. We want to highlight that as well. So we feel the difference between what is tonic, the subdominant harmony section, back to tonic. And then we go to that dominant section, is always the loudest point of the 12-bar cycle, back to the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. Listen for that, and I'll try and highlight those dynamics too a little bit here. Couple wrong notes there in bar 9.
This piece is quite a bit harder than you think it would be.
Yeah, I have trouble. I don't know if I've ever gotten through it perfectly. Mind you, I haven't spent a ton of time. So this would be trickier than it looks, I think, for students based on that, but still a really neat piece. Just to introduce them to 12-bar blues in a nice little capsule.
So I guess we better take the capital M off the minor, so it doesn't look like A minor. A minor.
Good. Yeah. Hannah Smith. Do you know anything about Hannah Smith, Andrew?
Not a lot. She's one of the neglected composers from the past. I'm not sure when she passed away. It'll stay in the back there.
So it's a little more classical in style, but a really neat thing looking at articulation, little phrases, and students would like to play this probably because of the running eighth notes that interject every measure here.
Yeah, so Hannah Smith wrote a lot of educational works for students to.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't it? It's got a nice etude-like character to it, but lots of charm. And you can see here one of the quotes that we've littered throughout the music here. Learn all there is to learn and then choose your own path by Georg Friedrich Handel. Okay, so a couple questions here. So in the last note, is the last note supposed to be in the bass clef in Jazz Cat Blues? It came across as low through the speaker. Let's look back at that. That's a good question. Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's right. I'm reading that in the bass clef for some reason. It should be up higher, shouldn't it, Andrew? I misread that.
That's okay. Like I
Okay.
said, tricky piece.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, good. Thanks for pointing that out, Anita. That's my misreading there. Also, didn't take the capital M. Okay, yeah. So,
Oh,
Andrew,
good. I like that. We don't have to fix anything. We do smaller runs on things, so if we do happen to find an error, we can fix it.
that's part of the thing, and this is nice to have extra eyes on this. We've had several sets of eyes on the scores already, but every time we look at them, we're kind of past that point now where the eyes looking at it are finding any errors. So please report anything, anyone, and if you see in here for sure, thanks for the comments. It helps us get the subsequent print runs more correct. Okay, I'll go back and play the last chord in the treble clef. Let's go back to Jazz Cat Blues. I'll just play from measure 8. I think that makes more sense. I was playing the same two notes, but in the bass clef before. Nice
Just,
to have.
I don't know if people are curious about our process for proofing. So we start with the original score. Carissa, my daughter, puts it in super score, so she's proofing then. Then I proof it. Then Derek proofs it. Then George Litters proofs it. It's made in super score. Then I proof it. Derek proofs it. Then we print the hard copy. There, Carissa, Derek, and I proof it again, and then we go to final print.
Right. And we're getting close to getting that hard copy for grade 3. Those of you that are curious, when's grade 3? We're getting close to getting that hard copy for grade 3. And hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, we'll have those for sale on Andrew's website. Is that right, Andrew?
Yeah. Yes. George finished his work today,
Okay.
so you and I will have some proofing to do over the weekend, and then we can go to hard.
Right. So the next piece here, this is Brock chart. I played this a couple of weeks ago for everybody when we did a quick overview, and it's a neat piece. What Brock does, we had him on a webinar here back in the spring for those who don't recall, and he writes music in more modern pop styles. It's like taking what Christopher Norton does, but he's sort of the next generation of that. And he's got very specific bands in mind. And so I had him create a list for me recently. So I'm just going to go to my list of this piece to see what he wrote about it. I got him to comment on where this piece came from in his mind. And so he says Keepsake. This one is kind of an alternative rock ballad, and he wanted the opening to sound like a guitar intro. Definitely a different style and sound, but the opening guitar from a couple of the slower tunes from Smashing Pumpkins or the Pixies are primarily quarter notes and feature some dissonance like Keepsake. So that's what he's thinking of Smashing Pumpkins or Pixies. He's got specific bands in mind, which I found really neat. Really catchy tunes. We think the students will really like them. I'll go back to the score here now.
I think he's one of the up and coming composers.
Yeah.
But we're working on something where we'll distribute all this music in Canada.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Keepsake. There is a second page. Well, let's keep the first page open for now so you can see how that reads. I find myself in this one because it's a softer ballad. I'm trying to be lyrical. I'm getting some crescendo, diminuendo, some phrasing, but also because it's pop based, I'm using a little more attack and a little more articulation than I would. I could easily make this sound more romantic or classical in nature, but I'm trying to break out of that mold sometimes and get something a little clearer while still giving some phrasing, sensitive pedaling, and a little bit of ritardando here and there at the end of some of the phrases. I think sounds really nice as well. Um, Okay, Anita, you're asking here? I need a timestamp on your latest comment here. You're
Thank you,
asking,
and for complimenting the scores.
yes,
Grade 3, we've already chosen the size. It'll be a slightly smaller.
right. Yeah, we confirmed that. So in terms of Keepsake, okay, Keepsake sounded faster than 126, likely was. Yeah, I think that is a little faster than 126 what I played. But again, these tempos, they're you'll notice if you go back and listen to what I'm recording, pretty much everything I'm playing is faster than recommended and faster than a lot of grade ones will want to play. That's just how I feel and hear the tune in the moment. It's probably well, a lot of this is going to be faster than a grade one would want to play. That's just me. It's sort of a personal thing. Can I get the phrasing out? And that's a good point. I'll go back to this a little bit slower and show you the danger that I run into with students a lot and that we hear on exams.
By the way, the recordings are the number. They're not, it says about 126, but the recording is 126.
And maybe we should tell people, I see we have a lot of new people on the webinar too. Can you just go over the process and where these recordings are available for people, the backing tracks?
I have to upload the grade 1 and the grade up to grade 3 should be uploaded very shortly. It's as we make the super score version, we also, a nice byproduct of that is these super recordings with a sampled Yamaha Grand piano, and they really do a great job. The sound is great. So, is that what you were asking me about?
Yeah.
Oh,
So we basically Andrew's made most of these recordings himself. Some come from a couple of composers. I've done all the grade 4 recordings, and Andrew's uploading these to various streaming services so that you can just listen to sample recordings. They're not recordings that you want to use or emulate and say, this is how it needs to be played on an exam. It's just a nice recording to hear how the song goes, basically. Right, Andrew?
yes. And it's on iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, Apple Music, Amazon Music,
Spotify?
iTunes, Spotify, already, Deezer. And there's about 20 companies that'll be listed.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to go to a heavier version of this where I'm playing a bit slower. It's harder to hear the phrasing when I go slower in a piece like this. And so on. That's perfectly allowable as well. Students just have to work harder to get the phrasing that way. I would tend to teach this a little bit on the quicker side so that we get some relief in the phrasing a lot easier. We can hear longer lines and get some momentum. Depends on the student and how fluent they're able to play, I think, at this level. Now, as for teacher preparing students for exams, it's good to know that there's a lot of leeway for tempo, absolutely. Especially in some of the classical, you'll see a lot of those tempo markings are good right in the middle. You'll hear versions where we're playing them quicker, sometimes a lot slower. And in the foreword to the books, we talk about this a little bit. I'm just going to refer to that foreword here. Metronome markings include acceptable ranges, but other factors including technical ability, personal taste, and appropriateness of style may also play an important role in determining a performance tempo outside of these ranges. So that's something that we state right in the preamble here.
Oh, I see Lillian posted the link to all these services.
Yeah, that's great. list of streaming services. So many more than I thought existed. Okay, this one I played a couple of weeks ago for everybody. Liten Dance, Little Dance by Alice Tenier. Again, a piece that you probably wouldn't hear very often or see published in a conservatory album to this point. Think Austrian waltz here. Nice lilting style, long phrasing there, trying to get long crescendos, diminuendos. There's a place in the middle where the left hand has to project. Again, probably pretty difficult. I find that spot really difficult to play and keep the right hand in control as well. Okay, and then O Canada. I won't play through this because we all know how O Canada sounds, but I think this is a really good arrangement by Andrew that includes both hands around middle C, includes the modulation. Of course, all the notes are there brilliantly at the grade 1 level. And hands come together a little bit at the end to create a nice sort of maestoso feeling toward the finish. And then upcoming, we also have another version in grade 2 of O Canada. This piece too, I played briefly a couple of weeks ago in the overview, Carl Reinecke, romantic piece. I'll play it again quickly here, but lots of really fine articulation. Allegretto and scherzino, vivace, all of those words taken together make for a lot of fun. This would probably be a pretty difficult piece. Students could certainly play this a lot slower than I do, and I think be quite successful. I just can't help myself. So it's a lot of fun. So lots of fun there with that one. I hadn't been exposed to that piece before, so it's nice to come across that. Now, what else
It's
do we
that Reinecke wasn't well accepted in his time because he wrote in the past more of a classical or early romantic. But his pieces are great.
Yeah, wonderful chamber music. Sneaky Suspects. Ian Green is a composer from Hamilton. I believe he's in Hamilton or Burlington, one of the two. And again, lots of character, staccato, accents, twists and turns. And I think with Halloween coming up here around the corner, this is a great Halloween piece that kind of fits into this album for students.
Lots of fun.
So lots of fun, yeah. Difficult to play. I find it because it's got some interesting twists and turns that we don't expect to hear, and so I'm always searching. Hey, did I play the wrong notes there or what? Okay, and then the last piece in the book, I believe this is. Yep, last piece here by Nicholas Fairbank. I think Nicholas is out west. Is that right, Andrew? Do you know? Is he in BC?
Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island.
This is a prelude. Somewhat romantic or classically inspired in a way, but it's nice to take the harmonies. Each bar features a different harmony, and get students to listen to how one chord leads to the next chord, leads to the next chord, and they can start to build phrasing structure bar by bar in this one. Very similar to, I think, what Handel might write, for example. Nice way to finish off the book. I think that'll be a real favorite among students, that piece, the way those harmonies blend together.
I'd be curious to get some feedback from the listeners today, what they think of the selections. We tried to get uh, pedagogically valuable pieces, but that were also very appealing. So I'm just curious what people think.
Absolutely. And this is a great way, between last week's webinar and today's webinar, we played through the entire book here. So you get an idea of what you're getting if you haven't ordered them yet and you're curious about it. You know exactly what you're getting into. The font, again, is a little larger than you'll see on my screen. It's quite large, in fact, for grade 1 and 2. And you can see the composer bios here, which will help with students and their background information. And then that's the end of the book there. I'm going to go back to the very beginning just so you can see title page, credits, table, or this is our forward here. Also talking about the digital SuperScore version. If those of you who want the digital version through the iPad only, you'll be able to have a version there that includes those recordings that were made. And table of contents divided into group 1, group 2. So you can see all the music there as it relates to our classical piano syllabus. Any of the music that I played today in group 2 can be used on the contemporary idioms piano exam as well. It doesn't have to be strictly for the classical exam. Any of those can be used as a contemporary selection. So that's just a quick play through the book there. Wondering if anyone has any questions. Go ahead and put them in the chat box here. So is Rockin' Prelude still grade 1? There's a lot of juicy musical stuff in there. Yep, that's a grade 1 piece, absolutely. It's getting close to grade 2, we realize. But I think back to something like Faber 3, some of those American beginner methods. This would fit nicely into level 3 in any of those methods, if not a little easier than that. That's why we put it back in grade 1, because the left hand's not as active as it seems. So that's why I think this fits firmly into grade 1 for us. I find that compared to the New Millennium series, which is still out there, folks, grade 1 and 2 are no longer in print, but you're going to see those books in the stores for the next couple of years still. The grade 1 pieces in that series I find overall are just slightly harder in some cases. I think we've done really well here to include textures and rhythms that fit the grade 1 mold quite nicely without overwhelming students or really challenging them too much. And you'll find the same for grade 2. Grade 2 is a nice step up, but nothing that isn't doable. And it won't be till grade 4 and 5 that you start to see that growth a little bit, where it starts, to be some pieces within a level that maybe seem harder than others. I think we've done a good job here at staying really narrow and sticking to the easier side of grade 1 here.
You missed.
Go ahead.
It says you missed one piece. I don't know if you do.
We missed one piece there, but honestly, if something's come up with that piece, it's not going to be in the copies that you people see. Let's just leave it at that. Correct, Andrew?
Oh, no, it's in.
Oh, it's in.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back and play the Sidekick shuffle then. That is in. I'm going to share the screen again. I've been avoiding that piece. I wasn't sure if it actually had made the cut or not here in the end for us.
I'm sorry, I'm not a fast thinker.
You've helped me solve my dilemma. Okay, Sidekick shuffle. Jen
Yeah,
Smith.
it's definitely in SuperScore and the hard copy.
Realize my microphone was a little high there. I apologize. I'm trying to shift it between talking and playing every time here, and it's difficult. Okay, so that's a nice little shuffle. Again, if students accent the offbeats, da 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 da, that'll give an authentic backbeat feel, I think, that we would be listening for in that one, just to get extra style points. Okay, so that's all we have for you today, folks. Just wanted to review grade 1. You can order any of these books from Andrew. Andrew, you still have stock of grade 1 to ship out right away?
Yes. We have replenished, but they go very fast. Every day there's orders.
Wow, that's great to hear. So, folks, go to harbridgepublishinghouse.com. If you have things to order at wanlessmusic.com, you can also get the books there through Wanless. Andrew controls all of those pieces now in both publishing companies. Nathan's saying you quite like the pieces and can picture your adult students also be able to select pieces that they can relate to. That's great to hear. That's really good to hear. Of course, grade 2 you can order as well. We'll start looking at grade 2 together next week. It's got a blue cover. Again, when you see these in the stores, and the Long and McQuaid stores and other retailers should start having these pretty soon if they don't already. We talk about digital badges on the back cover. It's something we've been trying to promote a lot lately too. So we hope you'll take a look at that. And for those of you that like the idea of a prep book, there's a prep book as well that I'll start going through in a couple weeks' time and show you a little bit about what's in there. And then after that, grade 3 should be on the shelves and ready to go, so we can start previewing grade 3 as well. In terms of other webinars, I do have a couple of other guests lined up here in October that would like to come on, so you're going to see more than just Andrew and I over the coming Fridays. And in the meantime, we will see you all next Friday. Thanks for joining us here today. We're going to stop the YouTube recording now.